to be talking about how we can get serious about playing. Whenever we think about play or playing, we usually tend to think of children or of childishness. The idea is that by the time we become adults, we dismiss play. It is unproductive and it's a guilty pleasure. However, play is very essential to adults. And even though with our personal and professional or commercial activities, we hardly have time to play, play is so essential to us as human beings that a lot of times we do play without even acknowledging it. Now, how can we define play? Play is a bit difficult to define because it's a moving target. It's hardly a tangible thing. Sorry. It's not a tangible thing. It's more of a process than an actual act. Than a tangible thing, sorry. It is voluntary and enjoyable. It has to be voluntary and enjoyable for it to be considered play. Play can be defined as something that is done for its own experience. It is more the act than the outcome. It's more the experience than achieving any goal. Now, play is something that we can do as individuals or together by ourselves socially. And there are different ways that we can categorize play. There's body play, which is any play that sort of requires significant movement of your body. So think of jumping or skipping. That's something that's called body play. Another example is object play. So any play that requires manipulating an object. So think of people that play with rubber bands or their pens. Those are examples of object play. A third category is creative play. This is any play that requires using your imagination. So storytelling, painting, drawing. These are all examples of play that fall under the category of creative. Now, the last category is ritual play. Now, I must make a disclaimer. I'm not saying go and play with witchcraft or your babala or your dibia. Ritual here is defined by anything that has a set action done in a prescribed order. So when we talk ritual play, we're thinking of usually games. So your what, your Scrabble, your chess. These are all examples of ritual play. Now, none of these are mutually exclusive. Any instance of play can cut across the different categories that we're seeing. So, for example, dancing is both creative play and body play. Your Scrabble or your Ludo is object play and ritual play. Sports is usually body play and ritual play. And while flirting is actually creative play and ritual play, because they are rules. If you don't know the rules, you're doing it wrong. Like I mentioned, play has to be voluntary for it to be considered as that. Let's compare, the fact that somebody is doing something that can be considered play doesn't necessarily mean that they are playing. And we can look at the example of an athlete versus somebody who enjoys running for the sake of it. Now, although an athlete may still enjoy playing, they have a responsibility to practice, to keep in shape, to keep fit. So when they are running, it is not solely because they want to, it's because of that responsibility. So that when you see an athlete running, you cannot say that person is playing because of that fact. And I'm pretty sure we all had this experience where we planned on doing something and perhaps even looked forward to doing the thing. And then right before we did it, somebody tells us to do the exact same thing. And then suddenly we don't want to do it anymore, or we're not enjoying it as we're doing it. And that's because it's no longer voluntary. I mean, you can still volunteer to do it, but it's not the only reason why you're doing it. Another thing that I mentioned was that play has to be enjoyable. And that's something that's very subjective, because what's enjoyable to me might be torture to you. After all, there are people that enjoy working out and exercising, and some people it's torture unless I have to do it for a particular reason. So I'm hoping that gives you an idea of what we mean when we say play. And if I had asked you about an hour ago, if you had played as adults within the past 2 months, I'm sure the answer would have included a lot of no's. But given what we know now, I'm hoping that the answer will change to yes. And that goes to show what I said earlier about the fact that it is so important to us that whether or not we admit it, with the fact that we dismiss it as something that adults should not do or do not do, does not mean that we don't do it because of how important it is to us as human beings. Thank you. So I'll talk about some of the benefits that it gives us as individuals. Now, on the very basic level, play is stress relief. Play does help us release endorphins, which is the body's natural feel-good chemical, and that can usually temporarily relieve pain. Another thing that pain does, it improves our brain functions, especially creative and ritual play. So playing helps to improve our memory and thinking skills. And it also triggers the release of BDNF, which is a secretion in our body that enables the growth of brain cells, which lowers our risks of degenerative mental diseases like Alzheimer's. So basically, when you play, you're reducing your chances of getting degenerative mental diseases. Lastly, for individuals, play helps to boost and improve our creativity. As human beings, and this can extend sometimes to primates, we learn better when we are in a relaxed mood, in a playful mood, and it's fun. So playing helps us improve our creativity and improve our problem-solving skills. As a community, play helps to improve our relationship with others because playing fosters empathy, trust, compassion, which is all important in maintaining meaningful relationship with other people in our society. Play also helps us improve our social skills because while we play, we do use verbal communication, we learn about boundaries, we learn cooperation, and even conflict resolution. And these are actually all important leadership skills. I mean, I have mentioned that play is useful for maintaining our mental health. However, play is also being used in healing and therapy sessions because play has been found to heal emotional and mental wounds. Matter of fact, in a study that looked at the role of play in over 6,000 case studies across childhood and adulthood, the lack of play actually was found to be an important factor in predicting criminal behavior in Texas. So I've talked about these many benefits of play, and that lets you know how important it is to us. And people that have been hip to this early enough have started harnessing the power of play in more serious situations, like social impact. So I'll talk about a couple of examples just to bring it home. And I'll start with something that I hope is familiar to everybody in this room, which is Tetris, or block game. Now, Tetris was designed in Russia in 1984, and it's basically a strategic tile matching game where irregular polygons fall from the top of the screen, and you have to arrange it into horizontal lines. And the more horizontal lines you get, the more they disappear, which makes more room for more falling polygons. Simple enough. And from our categories, if you remember, this is considered ritual play and, of course, virtual object play, because object play doesn't necessarily have to be a physical thing. Now, what does this have to do with anything serious, really? Because it's Tetris, right? Actually, Tetris has been found to be useful in blocking painful memories for people with trauma-related clinical disorders, so PTSD. And a study in addictive behavior found that playing Tetris for 3 minutes reduced the strength of cravings for addictive substances by 20%. And this effect lasted for over 7 days. So actually, this study is being replicated with other types of games that are similar to Tetris to see if this effect is also replicated. So maybe in a few years, we'll hear that rehabilitation centers are prescribing Candy Crush or something for people to practice with. So the next game I'll talk about is, well, it doesn't really have a name. It's kind of like that name, animal, place, thing game that doesn't have a formal name, but by the time we explain it, people are like, oh yeah, I get it, and then we do it. So for the sake of this talk today, I will name it the Long Throats game because it's about food. And for those that don't know, Long Throats is kind of like a milder greed that has to do with food. So the Long Throats game, like name, animal, place, or thing, we don't know who designed it, and we have no idea where it came from and when it was. But one of the reasons why my team and I love this game is because it's a free-form game. And by free-form, we mean it doesn't have a set object to use. You can use real food if you're brave. You can cut out pictures of food. You can draw your own food, or you can use your children's plastic food for it. So the object of the game is that the players are at a buffet, and one of the players is the server. And basically, every player goes to the server and requests for the food, asks for food that's on the buffet for it to be served. And whoever has the highest number of correct orders wins. However, you can only use body language. So imagine trying to say you want amala or balongu with body language. And another version of this game actually throws in non-food items into the table so that the server now has to understand what context your request is coming from. So because this game covers facial expressions, eye contact, body language, and even gestures, it has translated really, really well as a tool to teach consent, which is a huge factor in sexual assault cases. So this game not only demonstrates how hard it is to understand nonverbal consent, which is something that we do, but it also shows that verbal consent is the clearest, easiest way to know what somebody's asking for. This game also provides an opportunity for people to learn how to accurately interpret nonverbal contextual information. So this is a game that, again, was designed, we don't know who, we can't give credit to, but it falls under the category of all four. So it's body play, it's creative play, it's ritual play, and it's object play. The third game I'll talk about is Settlers of Catan, or Catan. So this was designed in Germany. I can't remember the year, but it's basically a strategy board game where players have literally settled in this new land and they're trying to build a life by gaining resources and building roads and houses, which in turn makes more resources and they can build a settlement. And the bigger your settlement, the more victory points that you have. So in 95, the game was actually released in 95, and since then they have been releasing expansion packs that add different elements to the game. So basically they added there's one that they added that included sea travel and all the resources that come in the sea. They added knights and cities where you can attack other settlements to take their resources or even defend your settlement from attack. But the one we'll be talking about is one expansion pack that's called Oil Springs. So Oil Springs introduced oil as a resource into the settlement. And you can use oil to create more resources. However, the more oil you use, the higher the chances of disaster happening to your settlement or settlements around you. So you can see how that translates to our current environmental crisis. Catan has actually been used to simulate the impact of individual impact and resource distribution challenges that we have in the world right now. Matter of fact, at the Goethe Institute in Washington, D.C. in 2011, about over 60 people gathered to play Catan as a way to highlight the challenges that usually come up when there are negotiations around climate discussion. Now, the last game I'll talk about is called Jaru's Journey. Jaru's Journey is a fantasy adventure mobile game, and the player is navigating the land of Izura that has been invaded by these monsters that were sent by the evil council to steal a precious artifact. So you have to team up and recruit with villagers from different parts of this land to try and save your kingdom. You learn new skills and new information about the land as you try to defeat the enemy. Now, players of this game have actually been able to draw a direct link from the narrative of the game to the real-world security concerns that we have here in Nigeria. So kidnapping, banditry, insurgency, and how critical reliable information is in these situations. And they've also been able to highlight the emphasis on working together as a team to achieve success no matter where you come from. So this game is actually being used as a tool to better equip citizens to participate in their democracy. And I have a small confession. This game was actually designed by my team and I in Abuja. So I would hate for you to leave today thinking that for playing to have any sort of value, it needs to have social impact. That's not true. Remember that we said play has to be voluntary and enjoyable. So we do need games that are out there strictly for recreation purposes. We do need playing to be out there strictly for recreation. And if it so happens to also have additional societal impact, then that's a bonus for us. And I also want to demystify something. Half of the games that we looked at today did not require coding. So you don't need to be tech-oriented or know how to code in order to design play or design games. So given all that we've seen today, whether it's from the lens of social, cultural, humanitarian, or even developmental perspectives, if we are really to draw out the benefits of play, I would like for us to consider more informal tools and methods while we discuss the pressing social issues that afflict Borno State or even Nigeria as a whole. And like play, I believe we'll bounce back. Thank you.